You're listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, the place to learn about new technology and technological advances before they become mainstream. This podcast is sponsored by Ingram Micro's Imagine Next. It's not about the destination. It's about going someplace you never thought possible. Go to imaginenext.ingrammicro.com to find out more. Let's get into it.
Welcome to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro. I'm your host, Keri Roberts, and my guest today is Sabine Howest. She is the VP of Global Partner Engagement and IoT at Ingram Micro. Welcome, Sabine. We are so thrilled to have you here today.
Hello, Keri. I'm very much excited to be here too. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the headlines. IoT is gaining a lot of attention for its growing role in the response to COVID-19. What trends are you seeing today around the use of IoT, and where do you see adoption heading?
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of talk about IoT during COVID-19. So I think this is a very relevant question. Generally speaking, there are many trends in IoT right now that go across the full stack of IoT, if you wish, the sensors, the gateways, connectivity and platform. And then I would say the one that is the most prevalent is probably edge compute right now. So, what it means is that there's been so many advances that were made at the processor level inside the edge of the IoT device, like, the sensors and the gateways, they all got really much faster and more powerful when it comes to processing data. So, generally, if you wish, data processing inside the edge computing piece is super important right now, and it pops up in all those conversations. I think it's also very relevant with regards to the COVID crisis. So what happens is, in my view, probably two things, basically. So first one is that, all the telco operators, they obviously look for cost effectiveness and efficiency whenever they have these devices out there and try to drive IoT solutions. So, when the edge comes in and is getting faster and the data that can go through it can be processed faster and analyzed what we call closer to its source. So it doesn't need to go back and forth between the actual connected device and its source, then that means savings for everyone. And, also it avoids some unnecessary communication. So, for example, if the data gets transmitted through mobile data, if the data on the device gets put through mobile data, then that means that cloud consumption and storage costs, etc., need to, go with it. Yeah, and then I would say the next consideration really is the fact that the edge compute is evolving so much. So it, like I said, it gets faster, but it also technology allows now for machine learning and artificial intelligence at the edge. So, these devices there inside, they get faster, but they also get smarter. And that means that they can identify data patterns right away, and they can avoid a lot of back and forth and make the device look smarter. So I think a really good example here with COVID would be a medical facility or, some place where healthcare providers are trying to use IoT connected devices for different types of solutions. So one that is very popular would be thermal imaging detection right now. So you maybe have seen those, right? They look like arcs where you walk through and your temperature gets measured. It can detect whether you wear a mask. And those are really live examples right now of, applications around IoT and solutions that have been put in place inside Ingram locations, but also with partners.
Yeah, it's extremely exciting what's already here and what's coming. And of course, the other issue is always about security. It's always top of mind in today's digital world. With so many people working from home or between the office and home, how is the conversation around security and IoT changing, do you think?
Well, I think security itself is always a real big concern. And with COVID, suddenly everybody, all the associates, a lot of people had to work at home, meaning not from home, but at home first, where maybe they don't have the right measures in place right now, or their enterprise was not ready to get their laptops configured properly or set up right. And they start accessing networking and all sorts of other infrastructure of their own company. And, all this had to be secured. So I would say there was a lot of concern as well around, vulnerability and attacks that came up. If you've seen the news, Keri, there was so much news about really sophisticated phishing attacks, malware, and unfortunately with the crisis came an increase also on cyber attacks. So security is always a big concern. It's even more right now with regards to the COVID pandemic. So, some of the fears, bringing it back to IoT, I would say is the fact that there's a high number of connected things or devices now that are sitting in the network and that try to get access to networks, right? Before, the way you could control what was accessing your network, I think, was a bit more finite. Now, with all the opportunities of connectivity, towards devices or externally speaking, people who are having at home some of their own software or use some device that is connected to their own wireless, and now suddenly, they're using the same internet to go and access their server for their company. It all gets connected. And I think both security and privacy really have become a major concern there. Yeah, so what Ingram's done is we've come up with an IoT threat defense solution there, and we've done one actually ourselves with our own solutions and our own devices, and we use it in warehouses, we use it for facilities that we have, and what we try to do there is we try to provide threat protection for the warehouse when it comes to now connectivity towards the cloud, or we make sure that there may be now different users in restricted areas and that, the access that we grant there is authorized because, under COVID, a lot of things have shuffled, right? We had some businesses that got registered as essential, and on the other side you had to comply with local government regulations. So the users who would usually do stuff, that got changed, and there was a lot of flexibility needed there. You also had to go and mitigate device vulnerabilities or, make sure that everything is compliant when it comes to data privacy and those things. So we had some really interesting case studies there. So we had our own device, like I said, where you could go and, detect if someone had a temperature before going in. But we also built solutions with partners, big OEMs on our side, where they would all go and include their own hardware stack and help us to go and have networking access control solutions and those kind of things there. So I think it's been a really busy time when it comes to security and privacy for IoT due to the pandemic.
Yeah, and another thing I want to chat about is this customer experience concept. What role does IoT have in the customer experience that you think partners need to consider?
Yeah, that's a big word, right? Because it's so diverse. If you think of what IoT can be, it can be like, it can be labeled in a very broad fashion. But well, I would say, in my view, customer experience inside IoT really needs to have three features, I would say. It needs to be seamless. Obviously, it has to be secure for the reasons we just mentioned. And it has to be actionable or executable easily for our partners. So seamless in what way is it has to have an end-to-end solution that allows for our partners to go and install something that functions, that is almost ready in the box, ideally in many places, or that is built together and then has a seamless streaming experience across the different aspects of what an IoT solution should do. So data gathering, data processing afterwards, leveraging the data, and even further on down to artificial intelligence and MR. Secure, well, we just mentioned that it's important that it's secure, and I think now the data privacy aspects around security are getting even more important, because think of it like if you and me, if we go through the airport now, imagine if you had to go through one of those thermal temperature kind of devices there. It's quite intrusive, right? People may look at, I saw that in the press, they may look at your faces and see if you have a frowning face or smile on your face to detect whether you feel good or bad and whether you should be, yes or not, board a flight. And that can be quite intrusive into your privacy. And I think with increased security will come, to a certain respect, a decrease of privacy. So people will have to give that up. And then lastly, the actionable side of IoT really has to be the fact that those are solutions that really have an aim, which is produce data that is meaningful and that allow us to go and take decisions, right? So if in the end the data that you get out from screening people, you can't use it to go and do something with it, then where's the purpose? So a lot of the data processing, data services around this, the quality of those is really important, because otherwise there's no point in having a connected device. I think the forward-looking nature of what IoT and connected devices can produce is really important here, and data is enabling that.
There's still also a lot of confusion about how partners can leverage IoT and especially establish a profitable practice with it. Can you share with us how they could do that, and maybe any examples of use cases of how it's worked well so far?
There's many ways, and Ingram serves a huge variety of partners across 55 countries. So the levels of competency and capabilities, also inside Ingram, and I think distribution and what we do within IoT varies greatly. So if we look at our partners, enabling a telco who's already equipped with a full-fledged 5G type of business unit, has huge operator expertise, obviously, that goes with it, and often deep consultancy expertise. The value add in terms of enablement that we bring there is probably more tending towards the side of supporting around infrastructure, supporting projects execution, some of the more transactional aspects, or complement some of the consulting features that customers may not have that much depth in, partners of that size. Then if you think more about the commercial and the mid-market, I think that's where Ingram can play a big role. Enabling our partners there, it starts from training, showcasing what we have. I think living projects and helping them to go and understand what opportunities are of those easy types of projects is certainly the first phase of enablement. And the beauty here is that I think distribution and Ingram itself can add a lot of value, right? We have access to broad amounts of ingredients that you need for IoT solutions when it comes to the infrastructure, devices themselves, but also now consultancy-wise, we can go and help and showcase really solutions that our partners could do and that are within their capabilities of execution. If we go and say, we can even go and say, look at your partner base. What are the industries that you most serve? We can define through business intelligence, what are the segments of partners, of end users that they have, for which they, could have a high propensity of doing more IoT with, and go and zoom in there and enable them. So I think it ranges really across a broad gamut of services that we can bring to the table that go from, more support, fulfill, and complete to really enable, drive, consult, and train.
Real quick, before we jump straight back into the episode today, we want to tell you about Ingram Micro Financial Solutions and how you can maximize your buying power and get to yes with your customers faster. For the last 9 years, Ingram Micro has been Channel Pro's reader's choice for best financing options. Put the power of our credit and leasing options to work for you. You can easily contact Financial Solutions at ingrammicro.com. All right, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, as we've heard on this show for almost a year now, Ingram definitely provides such an array of education, resources, people, tools, literally everything you need, which is incredible. And one of the things that you've spoken about before is this idea of strategizing globally and executing locally. In your new role with the IoT space, what does that mean to you? And how do you see Ingram adding value to the IoT market, including the new IoT Center of Excellence that's opening this fall?
Yeah, and this IoT Center of Excellence there, I think, is probably a big part of the answer to the question about how do you, strategize globally and execute locally. So really, our purpose is to go and set an overall view of what we think as a service provider, platform provider, as a more broadline distributor, but also a specialty value-added distributor, what can we bring there to the table for IoT? And how can we enable our countries and our different partners inside those countries to go and benefit from the growth that you have in this space? So the IoT Center is a great example, because it allows us to showcase what we can do. It allows us to go and invite our partners, invite end users, train. It allows us to invite internal associates for them to understand what the opportunities are. So you can imagine we sit on a huge sales force that support thousands of partners, and understanding what the value is that we can do with IoT is just paramount here. And if you have a physical location, for those of you who have been able to visit executive briefing centers of that sort, seeing and touching and living it yourself is the easiest way to understand, in my view. So the idea really is we want to enable our partners. We want to go and support our own country business units, supporting their local partners. I think Ingram has a firm belief that business is done locally, because it has to be done as closely to our customers locally as possible. And our view is that we can go and take away a lot of hassle from our local sales forces by, building not just a global strategy, if you wish, but really by setting an umbrella of foundational support services, whether it's platforms or IT or, physical demo centers like this one that can then allow the countries to go and accelerate and get deeper and, get more people in front of our partners.
I want to switch gears slightly here for a moment and talk about you as a person, Sabine, because I want to acknowledge you for your leadership style. Because before this interview, I spoke with a few people at Ingram, and all of them complimented you on your incredible ability to listen and understand your staff, how inspiring you are with talking about teamwork, and the way you communicate with your team. So I'm curious, when it comes to your leadership style, what is your process in creating a great team environment?
Yeah, that's very nice to say. It's nice to speak about my, ability to listen when you have to do a podcast and you feel like you're talking in one breath. But thanks for bringing this up. Well, first of all, Ingram's really is a great place to work. I have to say, and I hope our partners echo that, is the people and the value of the people are our major strength. And I think, as we know, got all catapulted into the 21st century with COVID and, things like cyber and IoT that all become even more important. I have to say, I'm really proud of being part of such an organization. And, one thing I noticed is that if you build really good teams, well, you get really good stuff done. And if your team functions well and you like your team likes you and they like each other, then usually what happens is you create good team spirit. You don't have people hiding or shying away from responsibility. In the contrary, you have people who want to pull the weight and who want to chime in and do more. And I don't know. I grew up through sales, so I was one of these people who had to go and, without a GPS, get in my rental car in all sorts of places across Europe and drive there. And I had a suitcase with samples, and I had customer appointments, and sit in the lobby there and wait. And I'd be usually an hour early before because, I couldn't trust my GPS. Then I had to trust some maps, and I was horrible at it. And I kept, now when you're here and we have this luxury of having these huge teams, right? And I still keep thinking, what kind of boss would I have liked? Or, what kind of team would I have liked? How would I be seen? And I think that's probably the biggest thing, is I try to have empathy in the sense that I try to understand what the people who work for me, what really makes them tick, and how they feel, what they want to get out of this, and what are their best. And I think for that, if you do that, and if you try to get to know each other, then, you build a lot of trust. You can be transparent. If you're transparent about your goals, then people can adhere to it. You have the same sense of purpose. And, if you feel your team's doing something great, you really get a lot of enthusiasm with it, because, well, the purpose that you all work for, if you start having results, it's very refreshing. My GPE team, and now I hope the IoT team, has been growing a lot over the last years, and that inside Ingram's been a testament of the trust and the value that this creates. And I think you get a sense of pride. So I think probably trusting each other, now being pretty transparent and having empathy, and just not forgetting that even if you're the leader and you work together as a team, there's a hierarchy, but aside from that, you're just people, right? We all, we have to respect each other as equals. And if you get down to those kind of standards and have a diverse team on top of it, it can get super fun.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. And as you just said, another thing that's of utmost importance to you as well is inclusion and equality. How do you lead and advocate in that way as well?
I try. So, I think it's probably the most honest way to say is I try. Obviously, everybody nowadays wants to have, I think, an inclusive and a diverse team, and, equality, not just in the sense of gender equality, but, having a diverse team. And when I say I try, is I think I try to put more effort into it. And for those of you who know how, we have quarters, we have quotas, time is always so paramount that you get stuff done fast. And that if you don't have the person, then, you got to do it, or you have to load it on top of someone else who already has a job until you have that headcount filled. And recruiting, I think, for inclusion and to have an equal or a diverse team is in my view is the most critical aspect there. And if you try and put more effort and time, then you may actually end up with a better result than going for it faster, because frankly you have to look harder. And I was I think in the last year and the year before, I was able to make 2 really good headcount additions that were, that could fall under the label of being inclusive and diverse. And frankly, it took 3 to 6 months longer every time. And so I think if you put the effort in, it can work, but you have to be committed. But once you do, it's so much fun, right? I remember I read once on LinkedIn some comment of one of the IT leaders saying, yeah, but the problem is if you've got too much of a diverse team, then you end up in a room and everyone is just different. They all have their own different opinions, and, you can't make sense of it anymore. And I couldn't disagree more, because I'm thinking the more actually you have diverse opinions, and the more you have different looking, different speaking, different feeling people sitting around the table with the same purpose, right? And being able to interact with each other with respect and agnostically of, whatever non-inclusive means, then you get some real fun conversation there. And you mix it up with people who want to learn, who are curious, who look at behind of what people want to say versus just at their face and their body, then, you can get to really deep, I would say you can get really meaningful creativity and innovation out of your teams. And it's very fun, right? It's fun when you're not all the same. At least, I don't know, I've lived in many places. I'm always curious around people, and it's very rewarding when you end up having a team where, not everybody just looks the same, if you wish, or has the same profile, or comes from the same background.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Diversity of thought is so important too. And, the one question we like to ask everyone on this show is, where do you see technology going within the next year? And it could be from an IoT standpoint, or it could be as a whole, whichever you prefer.
Wow, it's a big question, huh? So, so I don't know, I would say I'd bring it down to Ingram probably, and a bit to IoT, if you don't mind, Keri. But I think where it's going is it's really now the 21st century. I think the people who before thought that technology is not going to save the world, well, look at it. Think of the pandemic. If it had happened, 10 years ago, or even only 5 years ago, how much more havoc it may have created, right? So I really think there's a purpose behind technology, and I think that it is just going to accelerate. The cybersecurity piece, we talked about it, right? Because that goes with it. If technology goes deeper and further and touches more and more non-technology segments, then with that come different needs for privacy, security, the data, the sheer data that we'll produce will be bigger and bigger. So the need of being able to process that data for meaningful outcomes is going to be huge. And the services, however, the types of services you can do on the side to benefit from this is also going to be a huge opportunity. So I think we'll go into a world where, people will make more concessions when it comes to, clicks and checks that you put down under, questions where you get asked whether you accept terms. You will give up more on your phone, you will give up more in your car, you will give up more in your home when it comes to your own private data. And some of it will be for really good reasons and good advancement. And I think some of it will pose problems. So, the data privacy and what this means. We've started barcoding people and putting spyware willingly in people's phones so that we can go and track people right now. It's the reason for this is very valid with the pandemic, but think of, how these things are going to be done or undone. I don't know if you've got an Alexa or, a Siri or what else device. People are already used to having a microphone in their home, in their kitchen that listens to everything you say. And I think the future of technology is going to be even more that. Now, when it comes to Ingram, I think we'll have to evolve with it and support our partners and become deeper where it comes to certain capabilities that just not everybody can access to. So it's our job also to complement our partners and so that they can go and do their business in a supported way with us. And I would say when it comes to IoT, it's just massive, right? I mean, we're already talking gigantic numbers when it comes to growth and IoT. The forecasts that, IDC have out there, they're always huge numbers, huge growth areas. And it's true, right? Connected devices will rule in more and more our lives. And the same as with privacy, we'll give up freely, by clicking on this, I accept the terms, we'll give up freely how we use them and what it does with them. We probably as a user don't understand that much of what's going to be done with it, but it's all going to be exploited. I don't know, Keri, if you had that about 3-4 years ago, I noticed that my phone could tell Saturday morning when I got in the car, it started telling me where I was about to drive. Right? So
it's a little creepy, but it's exciting all at the same time. No, I hear you.
God, I don't know if it really annoyed me first. And then I thought, I don't know if I've ever have signed up for this kind of thing. And, it bugged me for a while and then I got used to it. And then more and more of these sort of things popped up where, this phone or, this laptop or where else you are in the shop, it just seems to know more about you than yourself about what you're going to do. So I think that's the new reality. It's a bit scary, but at the same time, I think it's also very hopeful. Because, we've always managed, and I think there's big ways to go and monetize this, right? The IT itself is going to be a sector, in my view, that will do well. If you think how the IT industry is doing in this difficult year, 2020, I think a lot of people will agree that we've been lucky here because we've got a business that is growing in many sectors and we have therefore the ability to support. And if you just bear with me one more minute, I would say, same with the same sense of purpose. It's been really good to observe how many channel partners, OEMs, vendors, but also bigger partners have chimed in there and supported the channel, right? Through financing, through programs, through faster payouts of rebates, through simplification, through early payment discounts, or what else were in terms of commercial support. And the fact that we were able to do that within the industry through agents who are active in this industry, I think it's just, it's been great to watch. I think the future of IT and technology is certainly bright in my view.
Yeah. And as you had mentioned before, making the technology seamless and secure is really crucial, kind of having that mix. And we spoke a ton about IoT today, and of course yourself personally as well. Where can partners access further resources on IoT and follow you on social media?
So per email, they can join us at iot@ingrammicro.com. or you could obviously go to Ingram IoT on Twitter, also on LinkedIn. You can find us easily there.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sabine. I congratulate you on your leadership style, and I'm so excited that you were here to share your passion and knowledge on the IoT and this space.
Keri, thank you for having me. It was fun, and good luck with the next editions.
If you like this episode or have a question, join the discussion on Twitter at Ingram TechSoul with the hashtag B2B Tech Talk. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro.
You've been listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, hosted by Keri Roberts. This episode was sponsored by Ingram Micro's Imagine Next. B2B Tech Talk is a joint production with Sweetfish Media and Ingram Micro. Ingram Micro production handled by Laura Burton and Christine Fan. To not miss an episode, subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform.